To this conversation now, the National Health Department is pulling out all the stops to get to the bottom of the deadly cases of suspected food poisoning in Gauteng, following the tragic death of 6 children in Soweto. 80 environmental health inspectors are set to investigate what the department believes is the quote-unquote chemical agent responsible for the incidents. For more on this, I'm joined by the Health Minister, Dr Aaron Motsoaledi, who talks to us on his way to the airport. He says, Minister, good evening to you. Hopefully we can have a stable conversation while you travel. Your department, has it identified this quote-unquote chemical agent and what it could possibly be?
Good evening, colleague. Good evening to the listeners and viewers out there. Unfortunately, yes, I had to travel because I must catch this flight to Cape Town. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble for my meetings tomorrow. Yes, indeed. Colleague, there are 5 state institutions which have been doing work there. Firstly, detectives from South African police services, ever since the incidents, have been doing investigation because they regard this as a possible crime scene. But also the National Department of Health had sent its environmental practitioners there, as is the city of Johannesburg. They sent environmental practitioners, but the Department of Agriculture has been on the ground. Also the National, Consumer Commission has been on the ground. But all of them have been going there separately and individually.
Yeah.
Now the net joins the structure that coordinates security in the country, regard all these instances as a possible threat to the security of the country and its citizens. So they recommended that from now onwards, all these institutions must sit together under the auspices of the Department of Health, because no matter what is that which we are dealing with, no matter where it emerges from, in the final analysis, it leads to very serious illness or even death in some cases. So that's why the department took over. Now, when we met with these institutions, we invited the NICD, the National Institute of Communicable Diseases, because we then remembered years back when there was listeriosis, we had no idea where it emerged from. They were able to search in the whole country and finally arrived at the conclusion or found it to be emerging from a factory in Polokwane.
Yeah.
So we believe they've got experience on how to search, and we brought them along after a long meeting and analysis and checking the symptoms and signs of those who were affected and those who departed. We concluded that this is not a biological pathogen, it's rather a chemical pathogen, and we need to identify it.
Yeah. Minister, in previous cases, I'm talking about previous cases of death, and I will be specific. There was a Naledi case back in 2023. This was in Soweto as well. Organophosphate was identified to have been the cause of death. Could this be any different to that?
We do not know, Toli, but we have to find scientific evidence confirmed by a laboratory before we use such anecdotes or such insinuations. We are not sure, and as a state, we cannot do that. Insinuations or anecdotes and all of that and presuppositions. We have got to put evidence on the table and say, here it is, and this is how we arrived at the evidence.
Is there a particular explanation, Minister Motsoaledi, as to why these incidents seem to emanate from township areas? Minister, I'm not sure if you were able to get my question there. That's one of the
explanations we are looking for. Sorry?
Apologies. I think there's a breakage in transmission.
Hello?
We are here, Minister. We can hear you still. If you're able to get the question, please go ahead and respond.
Yeah, no, I got it. I'm saying because this is to do with some form of food contamination, because you are aware that our townships have got a lot of spaza shops or informal settlement, whether they are owned by foreign nationals or locals, which are not as shiny as you'll find in establishment, which you'll find in white suburbs. And we believe that simply is the answer, but we want a more scientific answer than that one.
As you mentioned, foreign-owned spaza shops are the target of angry residents because they believe that these outlets are the source of the toxic substance or substances. Are communities correct in their action?
Well, we can't say they are correct or wrong, but all we are saying is that we need to prove or disprove. In other words, we need to come up with a laboratory confirmed diagnosis where we can say, no, actually communities are wrong, or to say, indeed, communities are right. At the moment, we are not in a position to say so, except in terms of postulations. But in terms of empirical evidence, we are not in a position to say so.
There will be criticism, Minister Motsoaledi, that it's not the first time the country is dealing with these cases. There were previous cases, even some dating back to 2018, as I reminded the MEC of Finance in Gauteng, Lebogang Maile, last night. What has taken government so long to do exactly what you are now intending to do?
Well, there are two processes here, Poli. The other one did not start now. When complaints mounted, we realized that there might be some truth that there is a problem with spaza shops. Anyway, we see them cropping all over. Now the problem, Poli, was that everybody was piling complaints onto the shoulders of the Department of Home Affairs. I was there, I know. Anything that happens and is thought to be done by foreign nationals, they say Home Affairs is responsible. Even if it could be something to do with bylaws, which we believe, yes, there are a lot of bylaws that are not being followed, that are not being enforced by municipalities all over the country. So because we're under pressure as Home Affairs, as early as February this year, not this year actually, last year, Toli, as early as February last year, when the House of Traditional Leaders was open in Parliament, we invited Contralesa and members of the House and the Department of Local Government, which is COPTA, and SALGA. We sat in Cape Town and discussed this problem and found that we are miles apart in understanding who must do what. We then decided that we need a whole 2-day workshop. And indeed, we had such a workshop, which was held in October last year at Beachwood Hotel for 2 days. All the 7 houses of traditional leaders came. 36 district municipalities out of 52 came. 6 metro municipalities out of 8 came. We invited the Department of Small Business, COPTA, Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, and Home Affairs was there, and Department of Housing. We deliberated and came with resolution. The first resolution was that the Minister of COPTA need to come up with a series of common bylaws by which municipalities must live, because they seem to be lost about their bylaws and what they are saying, especially in terms of businesses. And I must tell you, the department did so, but in following South African rules, they have to send whatever regulation they drew for public participation. They send them out to SALGA, municipalities, traditional leaders, other government departments. We received them in Home Affairs because I remember we called a workshop and compared them with immigration laws of the country, and we had to send them back. And we even incorporated them into the new white paper on immigration, which you remember a cabinet adopted, yes, on the 10th of April. But then when the inputs came out, before COPTA could incorporate them and gazette, we went for elections. And obviously, during the election, there was a pause. And unfortunately, these instances are now overtaking us, making as if we have never done anything.